Welcome back to the Kirk Miller Podcast. Today I am joined by Jason Graystone, a man who is an expert when it comes to all aspects of financial freedom. And I know he's going to unpack today mental freedom, which for me is just as important. And he's also a TEDx speaker and he's done many, many things in business. And am I right in saying you've got the Tears of Freedom?
I run a program called the Tears of Freedom.
Tears of Freedom. So long story short, today we've got Jason on and he's going to be unpacking some things that I've never covered on the Kirk Miller Podcast. And I know there's lots of people listening to this, Jace, who are in pursuit of financial freedom. Some people might even have it, but they're fearful of losing it. And I'm sure you've come across so many different people who've come from nothing, made money, lost it. And then some people who really want to make money and freedom, but they just always seem to fall backwards. Yeah. I know we spoke before we kicked off. Am I right in saying you also came from a...
I came from a council estate, same as you.
Council estate too. So simply put, this show today is going to be packed with value if you are someone who is literally looking to better your life and live with freedom, whatever that looks like for you. So Jace, firstly, thank you for making this happen.
Oh, thanks for having me on, man. I think there's a lot of crossover in what you do and what I do anyway. You know, it's all human psychology at the end of the day and how we're driven, what we're driven by, and whatever achievement someone has in life is usually down to, you know, some kind of perceived void that they had as a child, you know, and they hold their self-worth to, they tie that kind of status to their self-worth. So it becomes just a mission in life. Yeah, it's easy to get wrong. Especially if you're listening to the wrong advice or in the wrong cliques or in the wrong environment. So yeah, I'm looking forward to kind of having this chat.
100%. So for those people who don't know you, Jace, like, what's your story? Like, where are you at now, and how did this story all begin? Because obviously I've done my due diligence ahead of this. You had some challenges. Am I right in saying at the age of 14 and been some different situations, so to speak? But like, for those who don't know you, like, what is it you do, and how did all this start?
So these days, you know, you're in my house and my studio at the moment on location here, and you know, I basically just tinker around this place. You know, I'm an investor. I made the majority of my money in investing in different assets, stock market, trading, and as a result of doing that, you know, there's only so long you can do that for. So you end up finding yourself being able to put valuable messages out. People say, "Oh, how do you do that? Can you teach me more?" And over the last, you know, few years, we've kind of moved into some training and really just focused on YouTube mainly, which is just a bit of fun.
Am I right in saying as well you spoke on stage with the likes of Daniel Priestley and Stephen
Daniel
Bartlett?
Priestley is actually a friend of mine. So yeah, I've spoke with Dan and Stephen Bartlett, Ali Abdaal and all those guys. And the reason I spoke on those stages is pretty much what we're talking about now. It's like the business owners are great at earning money, but they're shit at managing money, and management of money is what gives you freedom. And that's the kind of key thing that entrepreneurs get wrong. Prior to that, I was a kid, grew up on a council estate. You know, my dad left before I was born. He was like a kind of cardboard gangster type character. Grew up with my mum until, you know, on the council estate. My real dad, I used to get looked after by someone called Joey Pyle, who was like one of a renowned gangster, you know, as my mum went and tried to make ends meet. And, you know, it's funny when you look back at it now, but you start to think, God, why have I become so obsessed with like security? Because that's really what it was. It was money. It's security, which money just provides. And you look back and you think, flipping hell, you know, I had such a perception of lack of security. We had bailiffs knocking on the door and all that kind of stuff, but it was all the other stuff. It was no father figure, you know, until I was 6, and then my mum met my stepdad. It was being left at gangsters' houses where people come in screaming, shouting, and I wasn't, you know, I didn't quite understand that. My real dad then got shot and stabbed, and, you know, they closed down a pub because of it. And it was like, God, this is a life that's just full of uncertainty, and I just want some stable security, you know? And then on the estate, when I was 14, or just coming up to my 14th birthday, I had like a bit of a light bulb moment that kind of changed the way that I thought about money. And it was like, so we lived on this block of flats called Hatfield Mead, and every Friday, like all the mothers' meeting was like at the foot of this block, our block, there were some steps, and everyone used to sit there in the summer and just talk about the week. And one thing I picked up on was everyone moaning about money. It was always moaning about money. You know, money's evil, money. And I remember picking that up, thinking money's bad. You know, these people are miserable because of money. And then at 7:30, this guy called Roy used to come down and take everyone's money and do a syndicate lottery, right? So he used to go collect the money, go off and do a syndicate lottery. As soon as he collected the money and walked off, everyone's face would light up, talking about how amazing their life would be if they won the money. And I remember thinking, they've just been moaning about it. You know, how can it be good and bad? Like, what's going on? So I remember that. And then coincidentally that year, I wanted this BMX and this Mongoose Sniper BMX for my 14th birthday. And I was, you know, my mum and dad was like, look, we can't afford the bike, but if you somehow raise half the money, my mum and my stepdad, we'll put the other half towards it and you can get the bike and the trick nuts. And I was like, you know, that's game on. I'll do it. I had no idea how to make money. I didn't know where money came from. I just see my dad pull it out the wall. But
what did you do?
So I looked down at the green, and we had these greens in our estate, and there was cars parked around them, and I thought, I'll just wash some cars. So first day I went out, washed this white Volkswagen Golf for this lady called Lynn, and she paid me £5 plus £2 tip. And I was so excited. Like, I spent all day washing the car. It wasn't the most efficient way of working, but I went up to my room that night and my friend was there, and I was like, look, I've got £7 already. You know, I'm going to have this bike in no time. And he was like, shall I help? And I was like, oh, you know, I want to keep all the money for myself, kind of thing. But my stepdad came in. My stepdad came in the room and he was like, I'm going up to Safeway or whatever it was back then, the supermarket. Do you want anything? And something made me give him my entire earnings, like literally go back to zero. And I said, just get me another bucket and a squeegee and a sponge. Yeah. And he came back. Next day, my mate Gareth, we did 4 cars. And then within 4 weeks, I had Jason, Jack, Lloyd, and Gareth all washing cars, and I wasn't washing cars. And we were doing like 16 cars, up to 16 cars a day. And all I was doing was knocking on the doors and.
So you were delegating at 14 already without realising it.
It was, but I didn't realise. Like, it wasn't a deliberate thing. I was just like, right, you guys don't want to go and knock on the doors, so I'll go and knock on the doors. Yeah. So it just turned out that they were all washing the cars, and I didn't have time to wash cars. But then I had this realisation that money's amazing because I can pay these guys and make more, but I'm not got dirty fingernails. You know, I haven't got all the suds making my hands wrinkly, and I haven't got to get on my knees and scrub tires and wheels and stuff. And I thought it was like I discovered fire. Honestly, I put that 2 and 2 together. I thought the reason people are miserable with money is because they can't be using it properly. Because if you use it properly, it allows you to do more of the things that you do like doing. If you can delegate, you know, obviously, and I didn't even know what delegation was, you know, I was a kid, but I remember thinking, this is the best thing ever, you know.
And not only that, you're making people feel good because you're cleaning their cars, so it's like
it's a service. Yeah. But I just remember thinking, I put 2 and 2 together, and I thought, money is actually the thing that can make you do more of what you want to do, and if you use it right, you know, you can have an amazing life. You can have the things that you want, and you know.
So how long did you do that for?
Only till October. When I didn't even do it till October. I did it for the summer. Yeah. I got the bike in October the 20th, went down to Pearson's in Sutton, which isn't there anymore, picked up the bike, and that was it. But I did take those principles into work. You know, I when I went into the work world and business and things like that, I remember thinking delegation, you know, key. Yeah. Make sure that I do something once, teach it, never do it again. If it's uninspiring to me, you know, work out what my most valuable and high priority things are and what I'm good at and what I love doing in the business.
So what did you, you know, at like 14, 15, 16, and we could talk about the journey after that, but like, was there anything even from that moment? Because what stands out to me when I listen to that is obviously you were the marketeer or the salesman of the business without even knowing you were the rapport builder at the front end, which is the hardest job sometimes. Yeah. But did you have a natural knack for that? Why do you think you were able to convince people to
That's a good question. I've thought about that a lot. And I just think, if I look back at my childhood and it's so simple. I think all I thought was, I lack security. I lack stability. There is a lack in this family, in this family dynamic that I wish I had. I figured out that money can get you security. And I think as a result, like whatever your highest values are as a result of what you perceive to be missing most in your life, you will find whatever works, whatever makes. So I would sell because I knew that was a means to providing that money, providing that security. And I think I've naturally just navigated doing anything that I need to do to give me more security. And selling was one of them. If I wasn't going to do it, who's going to do it?
So what were you like at school? Were you smart at school, or did you, from that moment on, was that pretty much, I don't even know entrepreneurship was a word back then, but
it wasn't.
Did you, like, how did that shape your mindset in terms of what you wanted to do after school?
Yeah,
from that point.
So in school, I mean, I was bullied in the last year of school.
Why?
We had, basically there was I don't know if you remember freeway calling. You used to ring up your mate, ring someone else, and you'd all be on a call all night. And it was like a thing that you could do on BT.
I can't remember.
But we did that. And anyway, there was some prank calling going on. And, it was a big kid in our school. Who's now in prison, I think. But rather than the guys blame him, they blamed me, and they came after me, and it was a horrible time. Just as GCSEs were going on and all that kind of stuff. I wasn't smart. In fact, one of my teachers, Mr. Shillito, stood me up and showed me up in class, and I thought I'd done well in this SAT exam, and he was like, if you don't do well here, good luck, kind of thing. And I just felt so embarrassed. But what I was at school was independent. I've always been happy in my own company, always been content, just tinkering, learning, on my own. And I've always been fairly confident, even though I was like a fat kid.
Do you think that, and again, you don't have to answer this, but you said there you've always been independent. Was that because you had to be, because you had no father figure?
Yeah, I think so. It was just like I was in my room on my own, just doing what I needed to do. And I became my own father, I suppose. I became the father figure that I didn't have. And at school, I was a bit cocky, a little bit of a class joker, because that's the only way that I could see me having an edge over anyone. I would make jokes constantly. But when I got sent into the library, I didn't get sent to the library, but he showed me up in class, and I thought, there's no way I'm, having that. So I learned, it was around, I went into the library, I picked up Excel, started learning spreadsheets, and became fascinated with projections, tracking numbers, building charts. And,
wow.
I think today, had I not been shown up by Mr. Shillito, maybe I wouldn't have had such a fascination for data, analytics, and numbers, business. I'm able to now create businesses that I know are going to be profitable before I've even started them as a result of looking at the right
But if you hadn't been at that embarrassment, then you wouldn't use that pain as a driver or motivation.
It's all driven by the pain.
I get it. Because there's always an upside and a downside, right, to everything, depending on how you look at it.
Always.
So what did you do when you left school? Like, what was the first?
GCSE day, failed all of them apart from art. I got an A in art.
Is that why the studio's so well put together?
Yeah. If it was, I've always loved cameras. I've always loved tech. As you can see, I just turn it into my.
Yeah. To get some context, those who are listening to this on audio, because obviously some people are watching this back on YouTube, but if you listen to this on audio, to give you some context, this is like an insane setup. There's about 15 guitars. There's a piano. There's also like a high-tech system. It's one of the most polished podcast setups I've ever seen. So
thanks, man.
It's very easy on the eye, and I'll get behind the scenes if he lets me.
And if you're listening to the audio, go and watch the video as well.
Yeah, 100%. So you've said the words "be true to who you are." When did you first realise that you weren't being true to who you are?
Whenever in my life I've dreaded Monday morning, or I've struggled at achieving something that I feel that I should achieve, I've recognized that I'm either looking up to someone else and trying to get a result that someone else has got, or I'm doing things that are not aligned with who I am as a person, which means I've failed at delegation, or again, I'm chasing something that someone else has got a good result in, and I feel like I should have it. And what it boils down to is you're just going off, you're born, I believe that you're born with a purpose, and you don't know what that purpose is until you try a few things and something inspires you, something makes you light up. It might be animals, it might be mountaineering, it might be fitness, it might be money or business or whatever. And as soon as you find that, it's then your job to kind of only do the things within that you love to do, right? And I know that sounds like an ideal world, and it is an ideal world, but once you know what that is, your whole life should just be geared towards figuring out how you can do more of those few things and less of the rest of the stuff.
If it's that simple, why do a lot of people not do that?
Well, environment is one of them. What we've been told, poor information. That's just the basics. I mean, during lockdown, I think lockdown made a lot of people realise that they were spending a lot of time doing things that weren't aligned with what they wanted
to stop.
It did, yeah. It forced us to stop. And I remember there was this print shop in town. I used to go in there, and I just remember thinking, what is this guy spending every day in this print shop? Like, surely he could do this amount of work and make the same amount of money in an hour of being here in a day. Anyway, through lockdown, I went back there after lockdown. He's working 1 day a week in there, and then eventually closed the shop and done it all from home. And I thought, he's turned up to that shop every day, not questioning why or if it's the most efficient or effective way to live the life that he wants and have the experiences that he wants. He's just turning up, clocking in, clocking out, sitting there, being really inefficient with what he's doing every day. And that's a lot of wasted time. And it was just because he didn't have a light bulb moment or a rug pull moment like lockdown, like COVID, to go, look, check your life out. How are you spending your time? And I've always been ultra aware of how I spend my time. I don't want to waste a second.
What you're for people who might be resonate with that point of going, something isn't quite right. I don't know if I'm in the wrong job, the wrong environment. What are the cues for you? You said you're very aware. You said about you feel inspired. What are the signs that you know you're on track or that feedback?
Yeah. So clues that you're on track. I mean, look through your photo roll, your camera roll on your phone over the last 10 years. There'll be certain pictures that you take. There'll be a theme to what you choose to take photos of, right? It'll be kids, or it'll be the mountains or animals or insects or whatever, right? It'll just be, there'll be your thing in there. Combine that with, if I asked you what your friends would say you talk about most, what would they say? What would you bring up in conversation most? What do you spend most of your disposable income on? What lights you up? On Monday morning, if you didn't have to work, what would you choose to do first? And if you think of all those things put together, you'll start to see a pattern emerge, and that pattern will be something that's really aligned with who you truly are and what you would love to do every day. When you're not on track, you'll see yourself procrastinate. You'll see yourself have overwhelm. You'll see yourself beating yourself up. You'll be uninspired. You'll dread Monday morning. And that all comes down to chasing something else that is important to someone else that you're trying to do that isn't important to you. Like procrastination, in my opinion, you're either doing something, trying to do something that you're telling yourself you should be doing, and you're just not, it's not important to you. Or two, you just haven't broken it down into enough bite-sized chunks to actually remove the procrastination. So yeah, I mean, for most people, they sit in the first bucket, which is they're just doing stuff because they see it online. This is a big thing. Like, you live in Dubai. There's a lot of people just think, have got this fantasy about the Dubai lifestyle, and they think if they move to Dubai, they're going to be this.
But sometimes, and I know we're going to unpack this, Jay, you just relocate the problem.
Yeah, you absolutely relocate the problem because you're chasing something you're not inspired by. You're trying to be someone you're not. So I always say, be who you want to be, and it sounds like such a simple sentence, but when you get to the crux of it, if people really knew and truly knew how to do that, the world would be a better place, like literally.
Yeah, I know we'll come to this, but I want to go back to your specific journey in business. So, am I right in saying you started seeing some form of financial freedom from early to mid-20s?
Yeah.
What was the plan when you left school working towards that? Because I'm sure no matter how optimistic you were, and obviously how inspired with obviously the little ventures you were doing, to achieve that early, like was there a plan in place, or was it hope for the best, a bit of luck? Like what happened?
Yeah. So yourself, Kirk, that if you don't have there's setting goals.
Yeah.
And then there's planning goals,
yep.
right? And you don't achieve a six-pack without some planning. You can't just go,
Structure.
I want to have a six-pack one day, right?
Yep.
It's habits, it's routines, it's projections, it's numbers.
Yep.
It's like body fat, right? It's like, right, I need to see these metrics. And when I left school, went into work, I was an electrical engineer, and we found out I was going to have my first son at a very young age. I was 22 when we found out, and it sort of kicked me up the arse a bit. And I'd talked for a long time about becoming financially free and all this. I'm going to be an entrepreneur. Well, not an entrepreneur. I didn't even know what that word was, but I was going to run my own business and stuff like that. I was going to become like financially independent. And when we found out he was going to be born, I was like, right, I've got to actually do this.
Yeah.
And it was around that time that Microsoft Money came out, and it was basically like a glamorized spreadsheet, which I knew really well. And I started punching in some numbers into this spreadsheet when I was 22. Yeah. And I thought, oh, hang on a minute. How quickly can I replace my income right now as an electrical engineer? And I started punching some numbers in, and I thought, right, if I invest 10% of my income at a 10% return per year, which was quite conservative considering, stock market's gone up 10, 11% per year since inception. I said, I'll replace my income in 20 years. And I thought, that's interesting because I'll be 40 and, I'll be financially free. And I thought, well, most people work till 65. That's interesting how they just don't teach that in school, but they don't. And then I became obsessed with reducing that down. So it was like, okay, what if I increase my savings every 3 months by 10%? What if I grow my income every year by 10%? What if I, increase the returns I'm able to make more than 10%? What if I can do 12, 15, 20%? So it was this whole journey of adding higher speculation to my investment returns whilst maintaining income growth and all that. But it was also, what am I doing with my finances? How do I cut those expenses and prioritize my savings and investments over that expense? And basically just building a ton of systems that allowed me to really know the day that I could become financially free. And then once you have that certainty in a number, it's like, why you get this new confidence? It's like, why wouldn't I put everything into this? Let's just do this.
What was the money making machine at that time though? What was the business? Cause it's like going, okay, I need to save, I need to put this into investment, but you need the money in the first place. What was that?
Yeah. So first it was my job, right? Yeah. And then as I got to the point...
Do you mind sharing, Jason? I know it was years ago. Your job, how much you were earning back
yeah,
then?
So I was electrical engineer. Yeah. I was actually all right. By the time I was like 19, 20, I was earning like 50, 60 grand a year.
That's good money back.
Yeah. I was, but again, I wasn't ever going to work for anyone. So the business that I worked at, my stepdad got me the job, and then within 4 years, I was running that company. Okay. So everyone sort of worked for me, and then I started my own version of that when I got to the point where I figured out I've got to grow my income by a minimum of 10% per year. And in order to do that, I need to control my income. I can't have these guys selling the jobs and stuff. I need to be able to sell the jobs. So then I went into that. That business was doing, we did $500,000 in the first year, $1.5 million the second year, 2 million, and it was like, I suppose it was just my determination to make as much money as possible and to delegate. And I think as a result of delegating well, that's what makes you make more money. And I think that, just aside from this, there's a key business tip. If you can delegate, that's how you scale. If you
what was, I mean, it might have changed since then, but obviously this is gold for any business owner, entrepreneur, even myself, right? Delegation, it's quite a generic, broad word.
Yeah.
What do you think are the most, or for you, maybe just based on your story, were the most important delegations you did in those days? To was it admin? Like, what was the hierarchy of delegation, if at all?
Yeah. So first one is admin. I mean, but the quickest way to do it, because you might love admin, that might be a great thing that you love doing, which then you don't want to go back on my message of doing what you want to do, right? So first great thing to do is just draw up a little matrix, everything that you do in the business, who, if you've got more than one member of team, put them in the matrix, what they do all the time, and then just prioritize it and score it on 1, what you are good at, 2, what you actually enjoy doing, what you love doing. And then you can build this kind of heat map and you can see where you're doing too much, or you've got all the tasks that you don't actually like doing. So now you can work out how much it costs to replace those tasks, or who could do that better. If there's 2 members, 3 members, 4 members, and you can employ another member to do this that's kind of missing. And that's kind of how I approached business. So I would do that. I would start a business first, admin. I haven't answered an email I don't even check emails. I'm not an email person. So
nor do I. I'm the same. To be honest, some people go to me like, I don't open my emails unless it's like, Kirk, this requires you personally.
Yeah, exactly. But the day you have to, the day you stop with your emails, that's a life-changing moment. I promise you. It really is. Especially if you're a business owner and most of your time is stuck in emails, responding and firefighting and all that. The day that stops is a day that your head clears up to become more creative, more caring, more loving into your products and all that kind of stuff. So I already had this, and I would pay myself as much as I possibly could. Literally, I started a business to just pay myself as much money as possible. So that I could,
even in spite of tax and VAT and all that stuff.
Yeah, obviously all that was after that.
Yeah.
But then because we were good at business, but you get this point where you kind of need to pay for a new manager, but you can't quite afford the manager because I've got this goal over here to become financially free, and it started to. It's like a boat that was sinking, and it's like, So
what did you do?
Literally, just one day, I rode it out until I learned to. Basically, I needed to replace my income, and there was this period of time where it was very stressful. Staff were leaving. They could see my leadership wasn't there. I wasn't there long term, and I thought I've got to speed this up. I need about 18 to 20% per year on my pot to replace my income. So that meant I had to go into higher speculation. So I looked at online poker, I looked at options trading, and I looked at foreign exchange trading, and I blew about 40 grand in the markets. I spent about 3.5 years learning from that point, and consistently profitable after 3.5 years. And that just allowed me to grow that kind of leveraged income stream to knock that on the head. And I just walked away. I literally just walked away from a £4 million business, and just said, I'm done.
Yeah. And what did you go into then?
That's it. I just sat at home in my pants for a couple of years, not doing a lot. And then, and I thought, this is boring and I'm getting fat and I need to just, bloody good at guitar, but I need to do something. And that's when I opened up. There was a lot of crap around trading and investing at the time, because this was years and years ago. It wasn't as much as there is now, but there was still a lot of crap. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to open up my trading account and my investment account. I'm just going to let people watch me for free. And I just did that. And that's why we started the whole YouTube, social media.
When did you start the YouTube?
2015.
Okay.
10 years ago.
Okay. And just to give listeners some context, I mean, you've got how many subscribers?
Just under 500,000, I think.
Yeah. So, but that the goal, I mean, initially then was to provide as much
value. That was it. Just give everything away for free.
Because it is so confusing, Jace. I'll be honest, for someone who's totally inexperienced in the likes of trading and investing, I've heard so many horror stories of people getting burnt, and they've literally. I had a client once, I won't name his name. He had to stop working with me because he was promised or put his eggs all in one basket on the assumption that he would get Y back, and hey, it nearly killed him. Bless him. So it is very confusing. It's like health and fitness, right? I know what works, I know what doesn't, but like for someone who is not specialised in that area, you don't know who's the monkey and who knows there.
You just don't know who to trust. And there's a lot of scams out there where they'll say, put your money in, and you put a bit of money in, $5,000, $6,000, something like that. They'll give you a return. So they'll pay you and go, there you go, you've done $7,000. Why don't you put more in? And then it's when you put more in, you go, right, I've just earned $2,000 on $5,000. I'm now going to put $20,000 in. Then you never see it, and they take it. And so it's disgusting. It's the reason that I got into this. There was a lot of gurus out there that were promoting ridiculous returns and ridiculous things and unrealistic expectations. So I got into it and played the long game. It was like, this is the truth. This is what you need, like you. It's just talking about the truth. And I think that resonates with people. People they've got such attuned bullshit meters that it's like a breath of fresh air. And although we haven't grown the channel as quickly as we could if we were selling Lamborghinis and private jets, I can sleep at night. My kids have watched me build this from the ground up. My son's producing this show, by the way, and they've watched it. I can look at them in the eye and feel proud and feel that I've done the right thing. So we'll get there in the end, and we'll wipe out all of those scams.
Yeah, 100%. You teach a freedom machine. What is that in simple terms?
Freedom machine is built up of many things, really 6 main ones. Having the right mindset around money. We all kind of play a victim around money, or we have some kind of archetype around money that dictates our actions and tells us what we can and can't have, and they're just limiting beliefs. Your purpose and having a reason that will pull you through to actually achieve and build wealth, because if that's not strong enough, you're not going to do it. Just wanting to be an entrepreneur in Dubai is not enough that's not what your life is about. So you have to have something to tie the journey to make it easy through those, or easier through those tougher times. And then having your foundations, so your personal finance structure, removing emotion from financial decisions, automating your finances, automating your savings, having a system for optimizing your expenses, reducing your expenses, and making sure that you're on check with that every now and then, and having I call a liquidity system, basically your investment structure set up. Once that's all set up, it's about growing the pot, right? So that's through assets. And the reason it's through assets is because you want income that pays you to be free. You don't want income. Like people say, well, I'm in property. Well, you can't break a brick off your house and pay for breakfast with it. I can't fund my lifestyle with money that's stuck in a house. I just can't do that. So you want to think about income generating assets, and assets that you either buy or trade, which you need a skill for because you're either going to have to learn to invest, which again, there are passive to speculative investments, which means
explain that in layman's terms,
so like an S&P 500 index fund, for instance, won't require much of your time, an hour to set up, and you can automate that thing, and that will grow your wealth by 7 to 10% per year on year, right? So that's very passive. It's very, if I, just to put it into context, Mike Tyson, he earned $314 million and he blew it all, right? He blew it all because he wasn't around the right people.
And that was 20 years ago.
That was 20 years ago.
Probably double.
So imagine how hard it is to blow that. Imagine how hard it is to blow 214 million, right? So let's just say you blow 214 and you take 100 million and you put it into a passive investment like that. At that level, even if you get 5% per year, that's $96,000 a week. Passive. You're not doing anything. It's coming in and it's never eating into that original.
What's the risk? Is there a risk with something like that?
No risk. This is the stock market. So the way that the S&P 500 works, it's 500. It's like football, right? So you got to relegate. You got the Premier League. It's the Premier League of businesses. You've got a relegation zone that's monitored by the brightest minds on the planet and say, right, if you're underperforming, we'll get the next ones in. And it is. If you look at the chart of all of those 500 top performing companies, when you think about it, it's not just price tickers, it's human innovation, human evolution. So that will always go up. always go up. And if it doesn't go up, we've got bigger fish to fry than when to put our money. It's like the world's ending, man. Humans are like de-evolving, right? So that's very passive. You put your money into that. You don't have to do anything. You get true passive income.
Yeah.
Passive income is banded around in terrible ways now, but true passive income is where it requires very little of your time. Then after that, you can start going, okay, well, I want higher returns. So you might look at real estate investment trusts. So you want to be in the property market. Well, the real estate investment trust is a fund of property companies, just like the S&P 500 is a pool of all of the best performing companies. Property. So now you're in the property market, and now that's nicher. It's going to be potentially a higher return. You could then look at senior housing real estate investment trusts, which we've got baby boomers, right? So we've got the largest population of old people at the moment, and there is going to be a massive surge in retirement homes. So if you own a piece of all of those retirement home companies, you're now in retirement property, which is a good, could not financial advice, but that could be good. And then you just build your skill as you earn your right to higher degrees of risk. Then you can work your way up. So now I can pick large cap stocks. I understand how to read financial statements and invest in one company or a pool of 5 companies, say. To the point where now you've earned your degree, like higher degrees of risk, and your mindset is keeping up with the growth of your money. Now you can handle higher speculation. So it's like, now I can take a portion of my liquidity and put it into Bitcoin. And I don't watch it every day. I don't care if it goes up and down, because the allocation that I've set in that isn't going to keep me up at night. It isn't going to ruin my life if I lose it, but it's now having that volatility that's growing the whole lot together without without depleting it or, destroying my account. So I always say that you want to grow your wealth like a pyramid. This is the wealth system. And, the factory, you look at it like a pyramid, you build the foundations, you then earn your rights to higher degrees of risk so that your mindset can keep up with the growth of your money. What a lot of people do, the first investment they make is in Bitcoin, and they're awake all night. They're looking at their app on their phone, telling me Bitcoin's gone down, and I'm like, I don't know, is it? I don't check it. And if you're doing it that way, you're basically building an upside down pyramid or a house of cards that's going to.
So I remember seeing that pyramid, mate, on one of your videos. For those listening, like what does that pyramid look like from top to bottom then? Because I remember seeing it was income, then it was.
Right. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. Just to listen, I obviously stalked his videos beforehand, but yeah. I remember seeing you
so a lot of people, particularly in their 40s, are worried about having not a lot of free time.
I think this was on your stories yesterday, wasn't it? Right. And it will resonate with a hell of a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, if you're in your 40s and you're not in a financially independent position, it just means that you haven't prioritized your finances in your life because you just haven't, and you are running out of time. I don't want to frighten anyone, but there's, with fitness, you can be as fit. Like, it gets harder as you get older, right? It does get harder as you get older. Kirk's probably not the best example because he's looked the same since he was 20, but it does get harder. Same with money, right? So you run out of time to have the elasticity of these strategies, and your learning and your capacity to learn and the time commitments you've got. So it gets harder in that way. And what most people do is they think that income equals freedom, but it doesn't. So they spend the first 20 years of their life thinking, if I just earn more money, I'll have more freedom. And I think a fitness professional is a great example. They think, well, I'll earn £45 an hour and work every bloody hour God sends, and the problem is you cap out on hours.
JJ, it's funny you should say £45 an hour. That was how much my rate was in Coventry when I first started. Right. It was £45 an hour, and just like Jason said, you get to a point where I was doing 40, 50 hours a week. I'm at the gym 6:30, if not earlier, finishing at 10. You're squeezing your training sessions, you're trying to eat, You've got to train to keep that body to be the... And then, if you're a fitness professional listening to this, I didn't have time to offer the real value, which was outside the gym anyway. So as in managing someone's food and emotions, I didn't have time because I was so burnt out. But my ceiling was capped. There's only so much I could earn. Ceiling was capped. And then what happens as a result of that is you feel burned out. You feel like you need a treat. You feel like you should treat yourself. So the first opportunity comes up to spend some money, you go and blow all the money.
And it's like this constant cycle of, oh, why would I want to invest my money? I've worked so hard for this. I flipping hate, can't bear this. I deserve a treat. and it's a trap. And the more money you earn doesn't mean you're going to have more freedom, because your lifestyle expenses will creep up to the degree that you raise your income. And this is what I've found anyway. And you look at someone's spending in their bank account, you can quickly see what their self-worth is, because if you
explain that, because this is crucial, and I know it's not just about them. When you say see what their self-worth is, can you go a little bit deeper on that, please? You
will resonate with this, I'm sure. But I've printed out some of my people that I've worked with, print out their spending behavior in their bank account, and what you see is like a chart, and you'll see on day one they get paid, and it spikes up, and then it kind of whittles down on the first day, and then it kind of whittles down, and then bang, it get paid again, and it kind of looks like a heartbeat monitor, right? I call it a fingerprint of your finances. And what you'll be able to do, if you look at that, you'll be able to draw a line across kind of the common tops and the common bottoms, and then every time it kind of dips below, you'll see that it spikes up quick, and every time it goes way above, they'll spend it even quicker. And what you find by looking at a lot of these things is it's correlated to their self-worth. So every time they go below a certain threshold or a certain number in their bank, they feel like, oh no, I'm worth more than that, and they'll work hard and they'll get it back into the balance. And then every time that they get like a bonus or something, it goes straight away, because it's like they don't feel like they're worthy of that much money. So it's like, I need to get rid of this. This is why lottery winners, because they don't sit there and think, they don't sit there and write down, why am I worthy of this? How can this serve me? How can it serve my family? How can it serve my extended family? And they don't do that. They actually just go, oh, shit, I've won a load of money. I need to keep approval from everyone and fit in. So I need to buy friends and, get rid of it quickly. So you can see by looking at that, your self-worth. The key is, we all have goals and we all have aspirations and goal incomes and all that, but you don't always hit your goals. What you do always meet is your standards. So that bottom line is what you're not willing to accept less than, right? Like, it's when you go to a job and you get a pay rise. How many times have you taken a pay drop? Probably not many. You probably had more pay rises than pay drops, because your standards are there. And when you increase your standards, the top level will go up anyway. So it's not about having a goal of earning $1 million a year. It's basically having some standards that say, I will not accept that. So when you realise that £45 an hour weren't cutting it, you might have gone, right, now I'm charging £400 an hour, and that I'm not going below. And that becomes your new standard. And as a result, your wealth grows and your money grows and everything grows, right? So it's just standards. So you raise your standards instead of setting these goals that you're going to beat yourself up about and never actually attain. Raise your standards. Same with your body. You look in the mirror and you go, I'm not, I don't ever want to. I've now lost the hips or the love handles. I'm never going back to love handles. And you just won't. And as a result of that, everything will start to look better.
Yeah. So this might tie in with the tiers of freedom, because I want you to talk about, okay, how do people raise their standards? I've got my view on what I had to do to, like you say, go from £45 to an online coach charging 150, not knowing what I was doing. I mean, I look back and think there's no way on earth I'd remotely charge that now, because I know what I'm worth now, but I had to go through a journey. For someone who will totally resonate with what you've just said, because it makes total sense. Like, sometimes people just spend what they earn because they haven't shifted those standards or those beliefs. Does that tie in with the tiers of freedom system? And can you walk us through that, Jace? What is the tiers of freedom system? And is that within that tiers of freedom system, do you teach people how to raise their standards?
Yeah. It's all part of one, it's part of the mindset piece. Two, it's part of planning. There's a lot of planning that goes into planning goals. So I always say you get what you plan for. Yeah. You can all, if you've had a barbecue ever, you've planned it and it goes well. If you have a 7-day holiday, you plan it and it goes well, and you come back, and hopefully if they haven't lost your luggage, it's all good, right? But when you think about the holiday, if you take a 7-day holiday, the amount of time that you spend planning that 7-day holiday is probably around 2 hours, right? So booking it, flights, travel to the airport, passports if you need to, whatever, insurance, all that kind of stuff, probably about 2 hours. Of that 7-day holiday, that equates to about 1.6% of those 7 days, right? So if you was to apply that to the year, it would equate, depending on how much you sleep, to about 7 to 10 days. So how many people spend 7 to 10 days planning their year and where they want to be? Not many. People just have these like, oh, I'll put that, I want to do that this year.
It's an inconvenience.
It's inconvenience, but you have to plan it. So once you know what you want to do in the year, it's about breaking that thing down and actually having steps that you can just tick off that aren't overwhelming, that moves you towards that goal. It's the same in fitness. You do 10,000 steps a day, you drink a certain amount of liters of water, and they're just tiny little habits that they're inevitable to get the goal, as long as you keep these habits that are conducive to where you want to go. But if you don't plan it and you don't know how many steps you're doing, you don't know how many calories you're consuming and all that kind of stuff, you're pissing in the wind. Like, how do you know?
You're relying on hope for the future or the outcome and not predictability.
You rely on hope. Yeah, exactly that. So the Tiers of Freedom is about getting your financial structure right, learning how to grow your leveraged income streams, learning how to have a lifestyle. So exploiting things like how to have houses, cars, credit cards, how to use other people's money, and then how to speculate. And that is, the last tier is kind of optional. And I don't recommend most people go into trading or anything, which seems weird for me as a trading coach telling you not to trade, but most people shouldn't do it. And if you do that, if you do everything inside the Tiers of Freedom structure, you can replace, you can become financially free within 3 to 5 years. And I know that because not only have we created loads of people who are financially free, but it's numbers. It's numbers, and they don't lie. There's black and white. There's certainty in numbers. So if you do this and do that and do that and do that, you'll have this number. Is that enough for you to live off with this passive income coming from yielded from that pot? Yes or no? That's it.
Yeah, and I know we won't have time to go into all of them today, but from all your experience in doing this, what are the 3 most important tiers within that tier of freedom system? Like, what's number 1, for example? Like,
your mindset. Honestly, if you say things like that's a rip-off, or you have to understand that how you move and what the actions that you take will be dictated by the language that you use. So if you're saying that's a rip-off, you're basically saying that person, rephrase it, like, how that's really cool, how that business can charge that amount for that product and still sell that product. I'd love to learn how they do that. That's a completely different flip on
a meaning.
That's a rip-off. Exactly. Instead of saying that's a rip-off, it's like, well, instead of that, I'd rather spend my money on this, or, things like that, little things like that you're saying on a daily basis that you just are destroying your chances of becoming wealthy or financially free, because when that comes up in our life and we have to fight that trait, we're not going to be able to. It's a bit like judging anyone for anything. If you say, oh, that person's a mean person, or that person, I don't know, does so-and-so, there's going to be a point in your life when you have to do that. You have to have that trait, and you won't do it because now you've judged that person for doing it. You can't possibly display that in your own life. So it will stop you from actually getting to where you need to be. I'll give you an example. Like, you sack some staff and you do it in a bit of a horrible way, maybe, I don't know. And someone says, oh, that guy's a terrible boss, he sacks people off. And then they try and start a business. They're going to struggle when they need to sack their staff, right? They're going to go, oh no, I can't be this horrible. I can't be that horrible person. So they just won't employ staff. So it stops them from even getting to that level by not owning that trait. I always say that we've got all the same traits. We have everything. We own everything. We're always, we're good, we're bad, we're stingy, we're tight, we're giving, we're caring, and everyone owns everything. You've never met anyone who is always nice. You've never met anyone who's always horrible. We all have everything. So just knowing that, and then knowing where your blind spots are around, okay, what's my language towards money? I called that a rip-off. I said we can't afford that. Money don't grow on trees, all that kind of stuff. Stop yourself in your tracks and go, well, can it grow on trees? Is money the root of all evil? Where have I seen the contrary to that? And list out 20 different, 50 different ways that you've seen the opposite to that belief, until you neutralize that negative perception towards money. It's like, okay, rich people are greedy. Okay, well, where is the evidence that supports the opposite of that? Okay, well, I saw so-and-so give this, my uncle who's got a bit of money paid for us all to go on holiday, and you keep going until you go, oh yeah, rich people aren't greedy. Actually, I need to be a little bit greedy sometimes, and I need to be not greedy sometimes. It's
because all of this is going into our subconscious.
It is, and it's all because of what we've heard, what we've been told growing up, what we see in our environment, just literally doing the status quo without questioning anything that we're doing. And you need to stop and go, if someone tells you something, you need to say, fair point, they've got experience there, but is that what I want? A prime example is like when I was learning to drive, I said to my stepdad, like, shall I learn in an automatic or a manual? Now, I hate driving. I've got no interest in driving whatsoever. And he said, learn in the manual, because then you can drive both. And, and it was what he had been taught, and it was best for him. Well, it ended up costing me more money to learn in a manual because it took me longer. So I had to have more lessons, right? And as soon as I passed my test, I drove an automatic. And now all cars are going automatic. So it's like, if I just stopped and thought, yeah, but is that better for me?
Yeah.
I might have gone, oh, yeah, but I just want an easy. I want an automatic. It doesn't mean that much to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get it. Which I suppose maybe ties in a lot as well, Jace, that the power of who you actually listen to, who you spend time with, can have a dramatic impact.
So much. On
how much wealth you think you can have, let alone go and have.
Yeah. And there's limits to me. I've been driven to provide financial security and have freedom and all the rest of it. But I was out in Dubai a couple of years ago. I was on this yacht with a load of guys, and they were, billionaires. There was a couple of billionaires there, and there was, and a lot of them were close, 600, 700 million net worths. And they were just all moaning and bitching about all their team and staff and chase. And I remember asking one of them, I said, yeah, but what do you want more for? And he was like, well, it's just more security, more for my family. And I thought, well, I've been driven by security, right? But it's not my job to look after my kids' kids. I don't care what my kids' do. My job is to go teach my sons the knowledge and how to deal with paradoxes and how to, conduct themselves in certain situations and how to deal with certain challenges. And then it's up to them. Why am I going to live my life providing for their kids? They'll probably end up wet lettuces anyway. They won't be able to do anything.
I've got first-hand examples of that. And you imagine how many successful people I've coached.
Yeah,
Jace, in the niche we're in. And look, it's not that black and white, but I've seen lots of cases, like you've just said, where the person has a very, very, very wealthy family. They've never really had to work for anything.
And what do they do?
They drastically struggle with purpose.
Lack purpose.
Like drastically struggle with purpose. And as a result of that, if you're not happy with what you do or who you are, those same people struggle to attract a relationship, which is fulfilling. And then those same people have destructive behavior patterns because what they do and how they view themselves isn't meet their needs. So they're going to meet their needs at the weekend, drink, drugs, porn, whatever.
It's so common. And if you think about how we open this podcast, I believe that your highest values are formed as a result of what you perceive to be missing most as a kid. So if I perceive security and money and stability to be missing, I will then seek that and make it my life's mission to achieve that, right? In doing so, you go through this cycle where you have kids and you try and provide, which isn't always the best thing, right? But the kids who have had everything, what did they perceive to be missing as a child? Chaos, struggle, right? So now they want struggle. And subconsciously, I'm not saying you deliberately say, oh yeah, I really want to be a drug addict, but you are subconsciously, you're trying to find something that is going to disrupt your life, some struggle, some chaos, some friction.
I think the word that sticks out like in my mind is self-sabotage.
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 Yeah, exactly that.
I've seen it. I did one thing, even though I'm not on your planet when it comes to the level of financial planning, even though I'm getting better. But we've got stats and facts. We do audits on clients of like, why does that person progress faster? Why does that person not? And like the amount of self-sabotage in examples like you've just
because you don't believe that you can have that result. You know, you don't feel worthy of having that result. And any inkling or any chance or glimmer that you might actually get it, there'll be a big setback.
Even in relationships, it's like these people, and I've had it in when I left Coventry, and that's a different entity. But when it comes to love and connection, in examples of clients I've just shared, they'll be with someone, it might be going quite well, but they don't believe they're worth that. So it's like, let's fuck this up and then you're back to square one again. And these people really, really genuinely, they struggle to find love, and they've got everything front end that you'd think they need. They've got the big house, they can buy and do whatever they want, but there's no value on it because they've not had to work for it. And it's sort of how consistently can they fuck this situation up or this relationship up, and
all that will be down to is some kind of internal language pattern and belief that isn't true or half true. It'll be half true. Everything's half true, and it'll be, you know, your parents had a divorce and you took sides or thought it was. I give you an example in a relationship. It's like, imagine you come in, you find your partner cheating on you, right? And at that moment in time, you feel like you're the victim and you feel like that's the worst thing that could ever happen to you. And then you leave that room, and it will take you maybe months, maybe years to start trusting, going dating, right, all that kind of stuff. If you could just fast forward 20 years and I meet you and I say, was that person cheating on you the worst thing that happened to you? You'd probably go, it's the best thing that ever happened, because I've now met this person, I've had these kids, we've been to these places, right, and all that kind of stuff, right? So imagine if you could just do that in a second. So wisdom, like true growth and wisdom, is being able to see the good and the bad in any event and just neutralizing it as quickly as possible. And the quicker you can do that, the more wise you are as a person, and the more free you are in life, because you're not dragging through all these victim things, right? It's like, well, my house burnt down. Instead of why me, it's like, well, I should have got the electrics checked where that fuse box blew up. You know, that's the lesson. This is how much that lesson has earned me in the future. And this is something I've had to practice a lot, especially investing in the markets and trading and stuff. It's like neutralizing good losses and gains.
I couldn't agree more. You've said, I've seen this on a lot of your clips as well, like ownership is freedom. What does it actually look like day to day? Like, you use the word ownership a lot. Like
ownership.
Yeah.
That
might tie in with what you've just said, but just what does ownership is freedom. What do you mean?
Ownership is in a couple of things, right? So one is in knowledge and your ability and confidence that you can go out and serve and provide value and get income at any given time. And I think COVID and lockdown, that was you can strip away anything from you, but you can't take away your knowledge, and you know how to get someone jacked and ripped, right? No one can take that away from you. So no matter what happens in the world, you could go to a desert island and there's only 500 people there. You can start serving them immediately, and you've got empowerment in your ownership of your knowledge, right? That gives you freedom, because it's like, I'm confident that I can always be okay. And then owning assets. So assets that provide you with multiple income streams, owning assets that provide you with leveraged income streams that grow your money outside of the rate of inflation. When you own the right assets, that's freedom, because it's providing you income regardless of you having to go and work. And, if you can generate enough income to cover the lifestyle costs that you want and the experiences that you want for your family, regardless of a job, a parent, a partner, a spouse, a guardian, a geographical location, you are in a level of financial independence that most people don't get to. And then you can take it a step further and say, well, I want to maintain that income regardless of me. If I die, if I lose my mind, if I lose my marbles, if I lose my strength, my ability in my body, will that income still come in? If you can do that, that's supreme freedom, but you only get that from owning assets. You can only get to that level from assets.
So I know there'll be people listening to this at different ends of the earning spectrum. So there might be some people listening to this earning 30, 40, 50 grand a year, right? Or maybe that's what they pay themselves at the start of their entrepreneurial journey. But then there's some people maybe in a job that are looking to get into a business or get themselves up the ladder within a company. Then you got some people that earn millions. Is there a certain, because I've seen lots of things even from Tony Robbins on this, where like you have this percentage, off someone's top line, whether you're earning 40 or 50 grand a year or you're earning more than that, is there a sort of recommended, or even just share what you've done on out of that? What percentage do you spend, save, invest? Because it can be.
Yeah. For starters, I would say that if you can start with 10% of your income, right? And every 3 months, increase it by 10%. Okay. So 10%, 3 months later,
use a lot of examples. So someone's saving 10% is 100 quid.
Yeah. So let's just say you're saving £100 a month. 3 months later, you're going to acclimatise to that. You'll feel the pinch at first because it's 100 quid you had before, but you're paying yourself first, right? 3 months go by, you acclimatise to it, and then you turn it up a bit. You ramp it up a little bit, and you go, right, now I'm going to increase that by 10%. Now you're paying £110, right? And then you do it another 10% 3 months later once you acclimatise to that. And if you can get to the point, what happens when you're doing that, first of all, is you put a demand on your lifestyle and you pay yourself more into your investments and freedom, right? So you get to a point where you reduce your lifestyle costs to exactly what they need to be, rather than having all the stuff to show off and keep up with the Joneses, right? If you can get to the point where you're investing 50% of your income, which I know seems like a lot, but from that point on, 2 years is all it will take. 2 years is all it will take to completely replace your income from the returns.
How?
By investing at something at 10% per year, right?
Yeah.
The amount, as long as you don't withdraw more than 4% per year, you'll be at a stage where everything you've got in your pot will match your income. Okay. Now, depending on inflation rates and things like that, you're going to want to factor that in, but that's the truth. So the truth is, if you're 40 plus, right, you're probably not going to be able to do that, because you can't reduce your current lifestyle expenses by 50%. You just can't, because you've got commitments, you've got family, you've got houses and stuff like that. So unless you hit a lottery win, right, and I'll be honest with everyone here, and this is, just bear in mind, I've been investing all my life. My whole job and goal in life is to make great investments and get a good return on investment. And in that, I've done large property portfolios in Portugal. I've done angel investments on tech startups. I've done stock market, ETFs, real estate investment trusts, trading, crypto, everything, right? I've just invested money in this YouTube studio, right? And this is serious, because YouTube 1 year ago matched my highest return on any investments I've ever done. So if you're like 40, late 30s, 40, chances are you've got a lot of expertise. You've got a lot of knowledge. You know a lot about stuff. Building a personal brand is probably the biggest thing that you can do. The quickest way to grow your income, as you know, right? You go from £45 an hour to building a personal brand. People want to pay you £2,000 an hour. That's probably the best. I've invested this in a YouTube studio because there's a serious return on it. And I would highly recommend that if anyone's earning that sort of money and you're pushing late 30s, going into your 40s, consider building a personal brand.
Say for people who have no interest in doing that, they're not like camera friendly or whatever. Yeah. And this might have changed over the years, but from all your experience in all these different investments, what do you feel has worked best, in terms of getting you a really strong ROI? Is it trading? Is it Bitcoin? Is it crypto?
For me, trading's been
okay.
amazing, but it's not for everyone. And I would say if you can learn how to buy good stocks, that's where you're going to do the best. That's probably where you're going to do the best. But you have to have the habits. You have to earn your right to that. So if you go and try and put some money into a stock and you've never had any money in the market whatsoever, you're going to be kept up at night. You're going to watch the stock value and all that. Investing in stocks isn't about that. It's about the work goes in before you make the decision. Once you make the decision and put the money into the stock, the work's done. You don't check it. The hard bit is like having the skill to go, that's the right decision. So learning how to read 3 financial statements, your income statement, your balance sheet, and your cash flow statement, learning how to form a story off of those 3 statements, and then performing some qualitative analysis, like questions like, would I use it myself? Do I use it myself? Do I understand the product? Is it complex? Does it require repeat business? All these kind of qualitative things. You can then just pick some really, really good stocks. If you can understand how to see when they're undervalued, which you will if you read those financial statements. And the reason I say that, Kirk, is because there's some tools out there now like forecaster.ai.
Yeah, can you share them, like specifics?
Forecaster.ai. If anyone's interested in the stock market or investing, Forecaster's now a tool that would do like work that used to take me like 6 months, honestly, and it'll do it in 10 minutes. And we've got such tools available to us now that allow you to rapidly accelerate this journey, whilst most people still aren't investing in stock market, by the way. So forecaster.ai, no affiliation other than the fact that I've been an avid user of that thing. But just learn that, learn how to pick
I think one of the big takeaways from that, Jay, is whether someone doesn't want to build a personal brand or they want financial freedom, whether they're going to invest in the things you've shared, is are people actually dedicating some time to become more skillful or more valuable? Because a lot of the time you're only going to make more money based on the value they have, the skills you have, the knowledge you have. But a lot of people go, I want more money, but I'm not actually willing to put the time, effort into
and that's
doing
usually
that.
because they're looking up to someone else, Because how quickly does the day go when you're doing something you enjoy? It just flies by.
Yeah.
You wish you had more hours, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if you're doing something because you should be doing it, it's like, when's this fucking day going to end?
Yeah.
And most people are doing that, and they're not going, well, let's see what we've got. And even if you've got an income stream right now, you've got a business right now, just looking at it and going, how can I make this more mobile? So I can do it in more places. That'll free you up. That gives you a sense of freedom, just like in lockdown. And then once you've got it mobile, how can I reduce the time that I'm required to do these tasks? And then that'll make you feel even more free. And just by having a focus on those 2 things will make you a bit like Parkinson's law. If you have 4 hours to do a job, or 1 hour to do a job, chances are you'll do it in the hour. You've just been wasting 3 hours, right? 100%. So look at your business that way, and you'll free up your time. Lockdown, I know we've used lockdown a lot as an example, but in lockdown, people experienced financial freedom because they were at home. They could choose how they structure their day. They received passive income in the shape of a furlough check or something, right? They could prioritize what order they did in the day, and they didn't have anyone breathing down their neck, and they reduced their expenses because they weren't showing off to anyone. There was no one to go and show off to. So they got rid of the second car or whatever, and that is basically the habits of a wealthy, financially free person. Just try and see how you can do that now. And that's it.
That'll feed on to Jay. I didn't have this question down, but again, I'm just fascinated by this myself. You know how I've shared with you, inside Built to Last, we're consistently auditing and evaluating the traits, the behavior, the identity of people who seem to be happier in life.
Yeah.
They seem to be ticking the majority of boxes. Like, I genuinely believe you can have it all. There is no perfect balance, I get that, but I genuinely believe you can be successful, you can have money, you can be a good parent, good partner, and you can be healthy and in shape, right? Yep. Of course, no one's perfect. I'm certainly not. And I've evaluated, 2 types of client. You've got the same 168 hours in a week, right? You go to bed 7 hours, but you've got the same time, you've got the same access. For example, we're Built to Last, you've got the same coaches, the same plan. Why is it some people can achieve, other people can't? When it comes to all your years of experience, whether it's mentoring people or just being around the circles you're in, what would you say the top 3 traits of like a healthy, wealthy, high performer, someone who implements and makes money consistently versus those that go forwards, go backwards, or just what are the distinct differences?
First of all, the 3 things I would say is, one, they have a belief that they can have the life, they deserve the life, instead of chasing it by chance. They've sat down and gone, I deserve that life. Bit back to the lottery winners. If you feel like you deserve the money, you won't blow it, right? If you don't deserve the money, you'll blow it. So that's the first one. The second one is they believe that they are not better than everyone else, but they see something in themselves that is superior, right? And, it might sound egotistical, but they do. And they believe that they can have the life they want, but they believe in themselves. They've got this ego that's like driving them through. And then lastly, they become, I think the last point is they become great at delegation. And that comes in different forms. It could just be getting other people on board with their mission, influencing someone to go, I'm on this route. And it could be your wife, it could be your family, getting them on board with it. And that, that takes some doing, because we all grow at different rates, especially in a family dynamic. People's development is at a different level. There's an error between the two. And sometimes it's like you get a bit of friction in your relationship, and it's like, it's a choice. I've now got to decide whether I'm going to push on and go with what I believe or keep them happy and have some resentment later on. And you push on, you keep going, and then they come around to the idea, and you lead by example, and you can, and then you level up. So it's like, those are the 3 things. I think having a belief in what you deserve, believing in yourself, and then getting other people on board around you, not living up to their dream, but getting them on board with your dream.
But you can't do that if you don't believe in yourself.
Exactly.
Because I've said it on so many podcasts, I say it all the time. You cannot give what you don't have.
Exactly.
You cannot transfer belief or get someone to do something that you want them to do, is good for them, if you haven't got that inside you first.
Exactly. It's like on the airplane, right? When they say, put your mask on before your kids. It's like, what good are you to your kids if you can't, if you're not leading yourself?
On that note, mate, I can't get anyone on this podcast without obviously just touching on health. You mentioned before you overhauled your health routine. What triggered that shift? And by the way, his gym setup is absolutely phenomenal as well. He just got me in there to do a recce of it, right, and vet it. And,
a live reaction.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Yeah. So I was, quite a fat kid at school, and I lost a lot of weight when I left school. I kind of tied a lot of my self-worth to being in shape, and over the years I've not managed to have a 6-pack all year, but I'm always in the gym. I'm always training. I'm always, I'm on top of my diet. I'm off my diet. I'm bulking. I'm cutting and all that kind of stuff. I kind of think that's my little bit of self-sabotage as well. I think like sometimes I want a bit of a struggle. I want to have to cut down. If I was like it all the time, like you are, I think, I don't know, there'd be some inertia. Like I would get a bit used to it. So I like having that fight on my health. Not to say that I wouldn't love to have a 6-pack all year, but I kind of like the struggle as well. So yeah, it's always been a massive part of my life, and your standards. As you look at yourself in the mirror, that's your standards on everything in life. If you don't have a high standard of yourself, then how are you going to have a high standard on anything? Like just little things, the whole make your bed thing. I talk to my kids about making your bed, but it's true. You don't do the little things. You do something easy, you'll have a very hard life. And I like the discipline of, I don't want to go to the gym, but I go in there on the days that I don't want to go in there because I have to. And it sets the tone for everything else in my life. So,
yeah. Again, I'm nosy with everyone's routine specifically, especially because this is my bag. But is there a certain time of day you train? Because I know there's a lot of people listening to this, maybe even some clients who sometimes are off it. I've got work, I've got kids, I've got this, I've got that. Like, what works best for you when it comes in terms of keeping you adherent? Yeah,
I think it's changed over the years with my commitments. But I like to train in the morning to get it out of the way now. Yep. Having said that, some days I'll train in the evening, but most of the time in the morning. That just suits me best.
Yep.
I want a routine that doesn't mean that I'm in there for hours. I'm very intentional with every rep, every single move in there. I've spent years wasting my time in gyms, just going through the motions of pushing stuff. And, now I'm at a stage where I don't want to waste any time. Every single rep has to stretch and contract and, I want to feel it. So I spend half the time in the gym, half hour workouts, maybe 40 minutes, 3 or 4 times a week. And then, that's it. That's it.
Perfect. Cool. If your kids were to listen to this episode in 20 years' time, what would you want them to take from it?
Oh, that's a good question. I suppose just to kind of cover the theme of that's threaded through this conversation is don't look up to other people. Know that there's always a good and bad. If you're seeing too much good in one thing, it's because you're missing the negatives. And if you're seeing the negatives in one thing, you're missing the positives. And make sure that you question everything and only take actions that are aligned with who you want to be in the future. So if someone's giving you advice, ask yourself, well, do they live the life that I want? If not, then take the advice with a pinch of salt. Synthesize the paradoxes of information that people give you and go, well, this is my version and this is what's going to help me. And I think if you can handle every challenge, every situation by analysing it that way, I think you'll make some good decisions, and I think you'll have a happy life.
And you might have covered this in that what you've just shared anyway, but we've covered a lot in terms of different things you can do with investment, what to look for, and all this stuff. But just for someone doing pretty well financially right now, but still feeling trapped, like what is the first step? Is it that belief thing? Like what is the first step to breaking out of this? For anyone listening, they're still feeling trapped. What is the absolute first thing you would say? Do this after this podcast. Apart from look at your YouTube series, which we can share in a second.
I would. My podcast is obviously a great source for that. But honestly, it starts with looking at your life and reevaluating. Like, are you on track with where you thought you'd be? What did you think you'd have by now? Just asking yourself those questions, honest questions. Thinking back to when you was younger and going, have I achieved everything I wanted? Should I have more money would I thought I'd have more money to show for what I've earned by now? Just being really real with yourself over those questions, and then asking yourself, what is it that you want? If who would you be in 3 years from now? If nothing was a hurdle, if there was no obstructions, no hurdles, who do you want to be 3 years from now? What do you want to be doing 3 years from now? And what do you want to have 3 years from now? And give some honest answers. If you don't really like Lamborghinis, don't write a Lamborghini, because I couldn't think of anything worse than having a Lamborghini these days. It's flipping hindrance.
No, you and me both. You and me both.
Yeah. So who do you want to be? What do you want to be doing? What do you want to have 3 years from now? If nothing could get in the way. Next step, write down what could get in the way. Right? Why haven't you got that then yet? Why haven't you got that now? What has been the roadblocks, the hurdles, the excuses, and all that kind of stuff? And what you're doing is basically giving yourself in black and white a real story of what's going on. Where you want to go, where you thought you'd be, where you want to be, what's been stopping you, and then you can start to pick that apart for what it is, rather than just trying the new fad, trying the new thing, chasing the new property program or whatever it might be, the crypto thing. You can start to go, well, I'm never going to get there if I keep doing this. I need to formulate a contingency plan to stop me doing that. I need to set up some forfeits to stop me doing that. I need some accountability to get me to do that. And that's it. And honestly, a coach, a mentor, someone who's going to kick your ass. I have one, right? I train with someone now because I'm at a time in my life where I need a training partner. I've always trained on my own, but now I want someone. I was in there earlier and I was like, if you wasn't here, there's no way I would have done that all those reps, because I just would have just gone up. Like, no way. But I need that person to go, no, keep your shoulders back, keep your elbows in. I just need that. And
and also you're freeing up as well, Jace, bandwidth on the things that
Yeah, exactly.
you can put all your energy into. Because sometimes you don't even have to be, I say this all the time, Jace, people talk about like motivation. Like, honestly, I've just become a father, as you know, and like, mate, the last 4 weeks, my sleep cycle's been all over the shop.
Yeah.
I've not been motivated to train,
No.
but I've still done it. But like, I've got mentors and people to lean on in my life because you only have so much bandwidth.
And you've got accountability, right? Of your personal brand, right? You've got to do it.
100%. I think great thing to add to what Jay said is the people in your life. If you've got people in your life that are keeping you disciplined and focused on the future that you want and the life you want to live. And
yeah. I'm going to say, I think if you need motivation, you're probably doing something that isn't important to you.
Mm-hmm.
Discipline is doing things that you have to do regardless of how you feel, right? So if you're watching motivational videos to get you rich, you know, just switch that up straight away.
I mean, the questions you just shared, I mean, and this is probably a big takeaway from my side, it's very logical. But a lot of the time, the things that are logical to do are easy not to do.
Yeah.
Because it can be quite uncomfortable sometimes, can't it? Going, well, I expected to be here and I'm not. You're not facing the truth, but then you're just going to keep playing past the parcel with the things you need to do.
It's always going to be something in your past. I look at it like a mirror. So where you want to be and where you've been, right? If you've got a fear of something or a fantasy of something in the future, like, you know, let's just say, for instance, that you want to earn a certain amount of money, right? And you've got this kind of fantasy about earning a certain amount of money. Mm-hmm. If you struggle to do that, look back at your past and pinpoint a negative situation or event that took place when it comes to money, and ask yourself, why, you know, what was being said at that time? Why do I have that view on money back then? Because that'll be the thing that's holding you back, believe it or not. And the next step is to ask yourself what all the positives were that came of that event taking place, so that you can free yourself up and unlock this ability to actually reach the 100K or the 200K or whatever it is. And it is as simple as that. It's relieving these kind of skeletons and these things that we drag through that hold us back, because we always think, oh yeah, but if I get too rich, you know, I'll be this person, or if I earn that, I'll be this person, or I'll be seen as this or seen as that. It's because you've seen something in the past, either in a film or in your family or happened to someone else, that you labeled as a negative thing. And the goal is to see that as not a negative thing, not a positive thing, just a thing. And when you see it for a thing, you're like, all right, so I need to do that sometimes.
Amazing. Listen, last question. And it might be the thing you've just shared, but I'm just curious. If you lost it all tomorrow, what would be the first thing you would do? If you lost everything tomorrow, what would be the first thing going to your head, right? You got to survive. What would you do?
Oh, if I lost everything tomorrow, there's only, how do you get money? I need money, right? So there's only humans believe in money. So there's one way to get money. You get it from another human being. 2 ways to get the money. You either serve them, give them some value, and they pay you in a fair exchange, or you beat them at a skill. Poker, tennis, trading, whatever it might be. The easiest one to do is to serve them. So I would look at what problems they've got, what challenges they've got, what they're looking for, and I would build a service to suit that demand. I wouldn't go and try and sell them something that I think's a good idea. I would look at what they're looking for already, and I would provide that for them. And then I would take their money, and then I would learn the skill of how to beat people in zero-sum games like trading or poker or whatever. And I would do both. So I would take the money from them, put it into account, beat the market, and that's basically what I've done all my life. So yeah,
it's quite a logical thing. It's solve a problem, be very good at solving the problem.
That's it. Serving people so easy, you know, it really is.
Do a good job, do it better than the competitors or whatever. Yeah.
And build to demand. I think that a lot of entrepreneurs go, I've got this great idea, and they bury their head in the sand, creating logos and business cards and brochures, and they've done no testing to see if there's any demand whatsoever. Whereas I've always been, I'll sell something if someone asks for it. which is why what I do now is like I was just giving everything away for free. And then people are like, oh, can you go deeper on this, deeper on that? Can you teach a class and all this? So you just build things for demand, and you get supreme confidence knowing that there's already a demand for the thing that you're going to sell. You can even ask how much people would be willing to pay, before you've spent a penny. It's like, okay, if this existed and it solved this problem, this pain and this thing, and made you hit this target, how much would you pay for it? 500,000, 2,000, whatever. Great, I've got 10 spaces. There you go. Bang.
Gold. Where can people find you, Jace?
JasonGraystone.com. But if you've really if you have got any value from listening to my nasally voice, and you want more of my nasally voice, I do recommend you go to Always Free Podcast and start listening at episode 1, because I basically created a podcast, and in the first 10, 20 episodes, it's all in order. So everything that I recommend that you do is in those first episodes. So check that out. And if you're still listening at episode 6 and you're not sick of my voice, then send me a message.
Perfect. Jace, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me on. Great.
Please check Jason out, and I'm sure we'll do this again sometime.
Amazing.
Thank you so much.